Aisha and Senator Marshall left off. Talk about this jobs report. 339,000 new jobs, better than expected, yet unemployment ticking up to 3.7%. Your reaction?
Continuing one of the strongest economic recoveries in history. This president took office. We were facing a depression. We were in the middle of a pandemic. And oh, yeah, he had to stare down an insurrection on one of his first days in office. And since then, what we have seen is bipartisan investments in infrastructure, in semiconductor manufacturing to outcompete China. We have seen action to lower the cost of health care by empowering Medicare to negotiate. And we have seen millions and millions of new jobs added and inflation going down every month for the last 10 months. This president is presiding over a strong economy. Yeah. And this week, he has protected it by preventing a catastrophic default that would have cratered jobs and retirement accounts.
No doubt that would have been bad, and you were part of that center that held. It's very fascinating, but I want to just touch on Senator Marshall was sort of explaining so many Americans, you know, the statistics that you mentioned, you can certainly stand behind, but yet Americans aren't feeling it. They're still having trouble when they go to the grocery store, still trying to figure out how they're going to pay for this summer's vacations. How do you parse the reality on Main Street and the rhetoric coming out of Washington?
Prices remain too high. Democrats have taken action on the healthcare sector by empowering Medicare to negotiate drug prices and capping the cost of insulin, which Republicans refuse to join in. And the reality remains that the pandemic-induced shocks to supply chains, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, has snarled some of our ability to bring prices down expeditiously. But for 10 straight months, we have seen inflation cool, particularly in energy. And what's interesting about those economic stats is when you ask individual Americans how they're doing financially, they tend to say that they're in okay shape. When you ask them how the rest of the economy is doing, they tend to say the rest of the economy is in bad shape. There seems to be this disjunction between people's self-perception, where they feel like they're doing pretty well, and their perception of the wider economy, where because of some of the tribalism in reporting, they tend to think that the economy is in bad shape. And Democrats are going to have to pierce through that pessimism and really try to explain just how historic and effective this economic recovery has been.
Well, and no doubt this is going to be the top issue, I think, at this point on the campaign trail for 2024. Let's change gears, because I do want to get you to weigh in on the comments of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin today, saying that Washington will not stand for coercion and bullying by China. Tough words.
United States stands for a free and open Indo-Pacific, and that means we're going to work with our allies to maintain the status quo on the Taiwan Strait. We're going to prevent militarization of the South China Sea, and we are going to support the rules-based order in Asia that allows for trade and diplomacy to work and for ever more people to join the ranks of the middle class. But actually, the most important questions about China right now are not in the Shangri-La summit. They're in two places. One is in Ukraine, where the United States needs to ensure the strategic defeat of Russia to demonstrate to the world and to Xi Jinping in particular the example of our power. And number two is actually in Des Moines, Iowa, where Republican presidential candidates are going to be faced with a choice, whether they want to pursue the party of Trump that is isolationist and kowtows to Putin, or they want to pursue the party of Reagan that understood the value of the rules-based international order. And rest assured that Xi Jinping is watching what they're saying.
Great insight there. Since you brought up 2024, and we're talking a lot about it with the roast and ride out there in Iowa today, let me ask you, what are Democrats saying behind closed doors? The President Biden, took a hard fall this week at the Air Force Academy graduation, and it's not his first time. Is his age and his fragile condition going to be an issue for Democrats? Is it a voting concern of yours?
You know, I'm one of the younger members of Congress, and so I think and see a lot about the influence of age in politics. And my view is that in politics, you are young for so long as you are willing to take risks to do the right thing. And President Biden just this week took a risk to do the right thing for the country in compromising with Speaker McCarthy to avert a catastrophic default. So I think President Biden's record of bipartisan achievement is going to resonate.
Yeah, but Jake, forget his record. I mean, he's clearly a man of his age, and the fall is concerning. I mean, are Democrats going to just ignore the age thing, even though polling suggests that he is, I think it's 60-something%, Quinnipiac says he's too old, but just the concern for a fall. I mean, he is fortunately okay. The White House says he's fine, but as everybody knows, with our elderly citizens, if he had a serious injury, that would be bad. Are Democrats going to ignore this reality and just move on and hope that it doesn't come up between now and in November in 520-something days?
I think elections are choices, not referendums on any single issue. And the choice on the ballot in 2024 is going to be a president who has presided over one of the strongest economic recoveries in history, who has stood tall for American values in Ukraine, who has helped to heal the soul of this nation after an insurrection.
The campaign trail is front and center. Congressman Jake Auchincloss, thank you, as always, for coming on this Saturday.
Good to be with you.